Okay, well, I'm Dan Metcalf. Most people know me as Wheels Dan. That's what I am on all the socials. Myself, what have I done? Who am I?
A lot of people have said, I couldn't even run it. How did you manage to push it with your arms?
Pushing in a wheelchair like an idiot for 26 miles is relatively dangerous.
He rips his hands to shreds doing it. If it takes him 10 hours, he'll do it.
Hailing from Grantham, Dan is a person who pursues pushing himself to the limit both physically and mentally in order to reach some aspiring feats. In September of 2022, Dan went for 3 world records when he undertook the challenge of trying to be the fastest scuba diver to swim 1 mile in open water and with a swimming band. Now he is looking toward his next challenge, the London Marathon, and he's agreed to let me follow on his journey to the finish line. But before we head to London, Dan's got some training to do. I went down to one of his training sessions at Harloxton Manor, a great setting, and with just over a mile strip of suitable terrain, it's a good place for Dan to get in some pushing. This kind of training is heavily stressful on the upper body in order to prepare Dan for the 26 miles he's got to do. While Dan is using a track wheel at the front of his chair to help him with the marathon, the chair is a customised version of an everyday one, so it's not your traditional equipment for this kind of challenge, adding to the difficulty. Dan's training was going well, and he was steadily building back up his endurance in a chair. However, he hasn't always been using a wheelchair. Dan spoke to me a bit about the accident in 2014 that left him paralysed from the waist down and how it has changed his life.
I suppose really life changes in 3 seconds. That's it. So I went from I raced my motorbike a lot. I went on lots of track days, lots of, riding it hard on the road and all that kind of thing. I was kickboxing, so I was kickboxing twice a week. I did the Insanity Challenge 3 times. I did all those kind of things. I'd done big charity bike rides, cycling from Grantham to Land's End and back. I'd done all that kind of thing. So I was very, very active till all of a sudden 3 seconds and I'm laid on the side of the road doing sight checks. So check my fingers, check my toes, check my elbows, knees, work all the way up to the fact I thought, I'm all right, I'm fine. After they got the bike off my chest, that was, I thought, yeah, I'm all right. I looked down, and when I looked down, my legs were supposed to be in like a sit-up position, so seated, and they weren't. One was over that way and the other one was over there, and I thought, okay, now I'm in trouble. Tried to move my legs, nothing. Just like pins and needles firing down, absolutely nothing. And I instantly knew then, really. I instantly said to my mate Toff at the time, I shouted to him, get an ambulance, because I can't feel my legs. So, and that was it really, just there and then. It was quite weird, surreal at the time. I was laid there and I was staring up at a passerby who stopped, who actually saw everything, unfortunately, because he had his kids in the car. So, I went up in the Magpass Air Ambulance. They wouldn't let me look out the window, although I have got to thank them, because if it wasn't for them, I'd have died on the way to hospital, because I kept wanting to go to sleep, which is them, them keeping me alive, basically. So, yeah, that was what the World Records was for, is to raise money for those charities. So, it was always, my point of raising money for charities is always giving back, trying to give back. I can't never give back enough. I've been kept alive and I've been kind of fixed as much as can be. So, always give back to those that's helped me.
Despite Dan's stoic and inspiring attitude towards his accident, disaster struck again 4 years later when Dan was involved in a hand cycle accident with a car. This second crash affected both his shoulder and his mental state greatly.
It did really knock me back, the second crash, because it was on the head. It was all mental problems, as well as the shoulder and the neck, because it caused compression of C4, so that caused problems anyway in mobility and all that kind of stuff, and headaches all the time, passing out and all that rubbish. But yeah, the shoulder got knocked to 60% power, so that's never going to change. That is what it is now. I've got to have an operation on it to fix it, so doing the London Marathon's going to help that part, not. But it'll be all right. But it was more the mental problems. So the ups, the downs, I don't want to be here, I do want to be here, all that kind of rubbish. And like I say, the best things that happened to me was the thing that kept me there at the time was my daughter, or our daughter. Then the next thing was scuba diving that kept me here, and then the next one was Eve. And the fact of meeting Eve and just like, actually life can be better sort of thing. So when I met her and actually got on with doing life, actually felt like I was now living, it was those thoughts are out the window, they're gone, they're not like, you know, well, that's it, what's the point sort of thing. But, you know, thankful to Eve for diving and for my daughter, you know, that keeps me here.
To understand more about spinal cord injuries, I went to the charity Dan was doing the marathon on behalf of, Spinal Research. Andy Russell, Communications and Marketing Manager at the charity, explained to me what the next step for research could be.
What we're seeing now is there's the first generation of treatments that are really delivering functional change to people. So out of all of our projects, we've got a number now of projects that are actually taking place with human beings, which for someone like me, who was injured 20 years ago, 25 years ago, you know, that was just really not really thought about, not heard of. So we're at this point now where science is saying we understand the problem, we understand how we can potentially fix it, and now, you know, to get us across that next line, to get us to the next stage, is to take these clinical pilots that we're running around the world as well, and move the treatments forward.
I also wanted to speak to a friend of Dan's, Andrew Darby, to get an insight on what doing the marathon is like and what it can feel like emotionally.
People were shouting the name, and for the first couple of miles, you're kind of thanking everyone and saying, you know, responding to them. And then eventually it just gets to the point where there's just everyone's saying it. And the whole experience is, yeah, it was by far one of the best days of my life, just because it had such a big impact on the rest of my life so far, because it just almost enlightened me that people were very much more accepting of the whole situation, and it wasn't all about the wheelchair or anything. And it gave me a lot more, I almost say it gave me a bit more, got me more respect of people. It was a good way of kind of proving a point that I could do these things, and the wheelchair didn't slow me down, so to speak.
With training under his belt and with some advice for the day, Dan was ready. We arrived in a rainy London, and this was a problem as the rain could affect Dan's body temperature while sitting in the chair. But with some last-minute help from his wife Eve, Dan made it to the start line on time. And then he was off. As Dan began the marathon, we made our way to the Cutty Sark, hoping to catch him at the right time between miles 6 and 7. We were able to follow Dan through the London Marathon app's tracking feature, and Eve just about managed to spot him as he raced past. So we made our way to the next marker at mile 14, hoping to catch him there. And so we got to mile 14 and waited. And after a while of waiting, we checked the app to see where Dan had got up to. According to the app, he had already gone past, which seemed impossible as we'd been there so long, keeping a firm eye out for him. So, with time in the day diminishing to catch Dan, we headed to mile 21 and waited again. And after some time had passed, doubt started to settle in. Had Dan outsped us again? Had something happened? But then, as we looked out towards the runners in the distance, that's when Dan appeared. He saw us first, here, and we cheered as he motored past. And with a sigh of relief, we'd finally seen Dan and made sure that he was good to go that final leg of the marathon. With muscles aching and gloves torn, Dan knew the end was in sight. So with the day coming to a close, pushing on, Dan made it that last 5 miles to the finish line with a great time of 4 hours, 26 minutes and 20 seconds.
Well done, mate.
Well done. Enjoy the closing stages.
Yes.
Afterwards, we all met up for a drink at a pub with the other attendees from Spinal Research, and I got to speak to the man himself. How are you feeling?
Yeah, alright. Bit difficult.
Bit tired.
Yeah, a little bit tired. Shoulders are aching, arms are aching a bit. But it was really, really good. Definitely worth doing. to do it again? Yeah, I probably would. You know, getting round people is difficult, but it was actually really good. It was the 4 hours 40 guy that was really kind of like a saviour. I was chasing him down and pulling away, chasing him down. So that was helpful. I had to go and find him and say thank you. So yeah, that was quite cool. But got a good time, you know. So we was in a 5 hours 30 wave to start with. We finished with a 4 hours 40. So I did it in 4 hours 26 minutes 20 seconds. So happy with that.
Yeah.
It's pretty quick. First marathon. So
got that on your belt?
With the marathon done and dusted, Dan has proven a point that anything can be accomplished if you put your mind to it. We'll just have to wait and see what challenge Dan will be sizing up next.